told me they had a truck that had a tank on the back that they would dump partial containers of solvents, DDT, you name it. When it came into that lot, they didn't want to put this stuff back in through the system. They were told to dump it, get rid of it.
But perhaps most remarkable was that when the military decided to build another well at the base in the 1970s, the site they chose was an area adjacent to Lot 203, the dumping ground. The well supplied water to a base housing complex called Hadnot Point. Years later, water testing confirmed a slew of chemicals, but primarily a chemical called TCE, a solvent used for cleaning metal parts and a known carcinogen in high concentrations.
It's 1,400 parts per billion. Multiple documented readings.
That's almost 300 times the recommended limit. TCE in drinking water has been linked to brain and spinal defects, cleft lip and palate, and childhood leukemia. The area around the dumping ground is fenced off with a hazardous waste sign now. But look how close the well was to that site. The grassy area highlighted is where the well was drilled, just yards from the contamination site. But learning of the contamination wasn't the biggest surprise of Jerry Ensminger's investigation. According to what he says he found, the Marine Corps knew of the poison in the water and didn't shut down the wells for years. Ensminger obtained copies of this 1980 internal lab report that warned the water was highly contaminated, yet no action was taken to close the wells. 2 years later, the lab was asked to test for other chemicals, but it came across TCE and PCE in levels that, according to this internal document, quote, appeared to be at high levels and hence more important from a health standpoint than the other chemicals they were being asked to test for. For good measure, the lab added, for these reasons we call the situation to the attention of Camp Lejeune personnel. Despite being warned that Camp Lejeune's water was contaminated, the base did not close its contaminated wells until 5 years later, the same year Janey died.
Hindsight's 2020. The chemicals are now regulated. We wish we would have shut them down sooner or acted more quickly. Absolutely.
Marine Lieutenant Colonel Michael Tenkate is a lawyer for the Defense Department. He provides legal advice on environmental matters to the Marine Corps. We asked him why the wells weren't closed for 5 years after toxins were found in the water. Remember, those wells were the only source of drinking water on the base.
If I could draw a distinction, the chemicals were first discovered in the early 1980s. It was not until late 1984 and early 1985 that it was discovered that it was actually in the wells.
I want to make sure I understand here. As soon as it was known that the TCEs and PCEs were in the wells, at whatever level it was shut down?
Yes, sir. The base was trying to determine the source, and as soon as they discovered, hey, the source of the chemicals was the well, that well was shut down.
But they went to try to find out the source because it was determined the chemicals were in the water. As soon as the chemicals were found in the water, why wasn't the well shut down? And then you could find out where it came from.
I think I'm drawing the distinction you're asking about. Again, we worked very closely with the regulators in North Carolina. We continued to try and trace those chemicals. Once the source had been found, we shut down the wells. And compliance is a #1 priority for us. We're talking about the health and welfare of our Marines and their families.
But Ensminger uncovered this 1985 letter to the residents of Tarawa Terrace, which seems to downplay the situation significantly. The commanding general describes the contamination levels, up to 43 times higher than the EPA recommendation, as minute or trace amounts. Question how the commanding general could call levels as high as 43 times higher than the EPA's level could be described as minute trace amounts.
Sir, I can't respond to that. I mean, I wasn't there at the time, and I'm not a health expert. I don't really have the expertise to comment about what is a low level, what is a high level, what is safe, what is not safe.
But we did contact health experts who have studied the effects of these chemicals. The Massachusetts Department of Health, among others, has found an increased risk of childhood leukemia in a group exposed to TCE in utero. Massachusetts is a particularly relevant state. It was in the town of Woburn that high levels of TCE found in the drinking water were associated with high cancer rates. That story was made famous by the best-selling book, A Civil Action, which was made then into a Hollywood movie.
12 deaths over 15 years, 8 of them children. They think it has something to do with the city's drinking water.
What I wanted was an apology from someone for what they did to my son.
What does this have to do with the Marines at Camp Lejeune? Well, when the movie was released in 1998, the director of Camp Lejeune's toxic cleanup program wrote in an internal email that he wanted to delay health questionnaires being sent to former residents of the base who might have also been affected by TCE and PCE. He wrote, "Just a thought, with the movie coming out in December, can we delay the questionnaires until April-May timeframe?" And a follow-up email then states, "P.S. It appears we have to put off the questionnaires being mailed until at least February 99. Anybody who knows the Marines knows that part of their code is leave no Marine behind. In this case, have Marines been left behind?
Sir, we don't want that to happen. That's why we want to find every former resident and make sure that they have the most current information about this issue.